Down, down, Hezbollah. Down with Assad Bashar. Down with Ahmadinejad. We give our blood, our souls, for democracy in the Middle East. Now you may think that was a Labour Party Israeli march in support of the Arab Spring, and you would be right. Certainly, the Israeli feeling on the left is supportive of the Arab Spring, but when the last verse of the chanting was heard, we give our blood, our souls for Syria, in Homs, in Damascus, then you know something has really changed. Hezbollah welcomed the Arab Spring, but Hezbollah found themselves confronted by hypocrisy, and the hypocrisy went right down to the roots of Hezbollah in that they were founded by the Iranian Secret Service, the Iranian military. I believe they're called the Pasha Guards, and you can find out more about them in Robert Bayer's book, The Evil We Know, The Evil We Don't. There is much to see about Iran's isolation because of the Arab Spring. We've seen great things happen because of the Arab Spring, because of Tahrir Square in Egypt, the democracy protesters there fighting against the tanks of the Egyptian army at first, and police, later the isolation of the Egyptian police force, which was supporting Mubarak and was thoroughly corrupt, being crushed by the army as the army switched sides. The wheeling in of Mubarak on a stretcher, and with his sons having to read out all the charges against him, the 812 people he murdered in the streets. All of these things were Arabs, part of the Arab Spring. All of these things Hezbollah said it supported, and yet Hezbollah has been shown to be in a hypocrisy. Hezbollah is just the fingertips of Iranian power into the Mediterranean Sea. And the Israelis have been telling us that for many years. Are the Israelis right? The Israelis have their own problems with Iran and Syria, in that Bashar Assad is running a crime family in Syria and running Syria as his own personal fiefdom. And I'm not saying that Assad isn't dangerous, that he doesn't have organisation, but his whole model of rule, although he claims to be a Ba'athist, which means socialist in terms of totalitarian socialism, like Saddam Hussein, which is based on Stalinism, his whole mode of operation, just like the Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein, just like the Saudis, is feudalistic crime families, just like Jordan. The Italian and Arab saying, mafias with flags. And what has this done? Bashar Assad relies on the 5,000 security troops which have some intelligence capabilities that the Iranians have placed in his country in a cooperative alliance between them. He relies on Iranian organisation. Iran is also an Indo-European power. It is not an Arab state. And the Arabs may be throwing off what they see as the attempt at another Persian Empire. Now, which Ahmadinejad, much like an Iranian Putin, is trying to re-establish the old former empire. There are many processes within empire, as Niall Ferguson has said, where the most violent part of it is when it collapses and dissolves. This we saw with the Shah of Iran, with the coming of the Ayatollah, and then the Supreme Leader Khomeini, and the other presidents and puppet leaders of Iran under the religious authorities. Ahmadinejad may claim on Euronews that he had no influence in the independent judicial rulings on the stoning of women for adultery or other things such as that. And the Shia religion is more akin, closer to Christianity in some ways than Sunniism, because they believe in Jesus Christ being the as a kind of saviour, but then the 10th Imam coming to replace him as the saviour. It's quite strange for Western ideas of rationalism to understand this, but these people really do believe in it. They believe in it as strongly as Lekud believes that the Jewish people are the chosen people. So the irrationality of Middle Eastern politics has a lot to do with the irrationality of Middle Eastern religious doctrine, as Ronald Reagan said. And we should not try and delve too deeply into it more than just to understand it. We should not get wrapped into it as much of American foreign policy has. But what would really finish off Iran is, and could, is if the Israeli Labour Party, the Social Democratic Labour Party of Israel, eventually became the government of Israel and got enough power to have a majority. This would really upset things, because although the course of Israeli defence policy may not change, the political culture of Israel may well change, and that would leave Lekud isolated if the Israeli Labour Party, which is a Zionist, I have no problem with them wanting self-determination, right, as Jewish nationalists. That's not a problem for me at all. But it would change the culture of Israel from threat, before the Arab Spring, to an open culture which might embrace the Arab Spring, might embrace democracy. And the strategy of tension which Israel needs Iran for, between the two enemies, there is a common community of interest in to try and keep the Arabs down, and the Russians, the Chinese, and even the Americans out. But that policy has failed. The Iranians can't keep the Americans out. They have 10,000 troops in Iraq. They may not control all of the country, but the flow of history is going towards the Arabs. It's going towards democracy. It's going towards the United States, because the United States can now say, with the removal of Saddam Hussein, this was the course of history which changed the course of Arab history towards the Arab Spring. The European Union is now getting involved. You can see the extent of European construction through Turkey and the building up of European construction projects throughout Arabia. You only need to see a satellite image of Europe and Arabia to see that there is an infrastructure link there through the amount of shining light that being emitted from the street lights of cities along the green crescent, the fertile crescent of Arabia, linking into Turkey, linking into Israel and the Mediterranean, and linking into Europe. There is a natural link there between the peoples of the Middle East and the European Union, and there will be a European Union policy to create a Middle Eastern Union, to create a North African Union, to eventually create East African and maybe even Southern African unions, and West African unions and Central African unions. So all these policies are all linked, and they might be linked by the development of chartered cities as well in all of the countries, as I've said. Technology is leading the way through Facebook and Twitter, and the development of technologies such as 3D printing, which can rapidly increase the manufacturing power of a democratic pro-Western Syria. So all the economic future of a post-Assad era, in cooperation with the European Union and the US, could be extremely positive. So I have some good news to tell you. And although there's slaughter in Syria, although 1,600 people have died, those people are martyrs. They should be embraced as heroes of democracy. They are fucking brave people, right? Who have died in Syria. And they're still dying, and they're still fighting for democracy. So we should support them in Europe and give them all the support they need.